in a series today called No Offense. It's going to be this way for the entire month of November. But before we dive in, one thing I'd like to just kind of highlight, and I do this every so often, is maybe you're looking for a good study Bible or something to take maybe just your devotion life or studying scriptures a little bit different or deeper. We use the New Living Translation pretty much for the most part on a Sunday morning. We'll be reading out of the New Living Translation. And if you have a New Living Translation Bible, they have one that's called a Filament-enabled study Bible. And you can actually download an app called the Filament app. And if you scan it actually takes you to the pages. It breaks down the scriptures that we read more in depth. It will actually give you devotions based off of those scriptures. You can look at maps, kind of seeing where this is taking place, when Jesus is talking, or when that thing happened in ministry. So if you're looking for a good study Bible, I would highly recommend the New Living Translation. Get a Filament-enabled study Bible. It's a free app. You download it. I think it will take your devotion life and your studying the scriptures to the next level. Personally, I use an English ESV study Bible as well. So there's some great ones out there. I just want to be able to highlight it for you. Hey, listen, when someone says to you, no offense, it's usually followed by something extremely very offensive, right? You're like, has anyone ever said something like that? Like, hey, no offense, looks like you've gained some weight. You're like, oh, you're like, okay. Like, all right, you know you're supposed to take it, right? No offense, but your kid has your nose. You're like, like, oh, all right. Like, you just got some things that people will say to you, or maybe you've said something to someone like, hey, no offense, and then you just be able to say whatever it is, because you should be able to say no offense and then say whatever it is that you want, and no one should be offended. As a pastor, I feel like I have pretty thick skin for the most part. I feel like, I could have things said about me, and it's because you just understand in leadership, you're never going to have 100%. Everyone is not going to like you 100% of the time, every time, and so it just is what it is as a pastor. But if you talk about my family, if you talk about my friends, maybe if you're on the outside and you say things about Cornerstone, hey, we might have some words, right? We might have some words because you've crossed a line. Maybe if you say something I'm self-conscious about, the Denver Broncos, but I am just going to point out that we've won 2 games in a row. I'm just saying that. So if I just go ahead and call playoffs right now, and if you guys out there, FanDuelers, put $5 on that or something, you know what I'm saying? Like you could do closet gamblers. All right, no. All right, we're in church. Let's just be honest today. It's really easy to be offended. And I think there are other people who just like make it their mission to offend other people. Right? I just feel like there are some people, like they're just looking to be offensive, and a lot of that comes from just social media, right? You have loud opinions everywhere more than ever before, and social media gave like the keyboard warriors a place to have their voice. And if you meet the majority of people who have extremely loud opinions online, if you were to meet them in person, they would never say something like that to someone's face. It's so much easier to type or to text that to someone than to actually say it to someone's face. But James, the half-brother of Jesus, when he's talking about the way we should react, he says it this way in his letter in James. He says, understand this, my dear brothers and sisters, you must all be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to get angry. Human anger does not produce the righteousness God desires. I am very quick to listen so I can respond immediately to prove my wife wrong. I know, like, my wife probably wishes I was slower to speak. That is the way it should be. Jesus modeled it, and he was great at this. As a matter of fact, when you read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Jesus was asked 183 direct questions. So like people would see Jesus, they would ask him a question directly, but he only answered 3 of them directly. Jesus never answered most people's questions. As a matter of fact, Jesus, I think, would make a great football coach, because what he would do is he would turn around a question and he would ask that person a question. He'd be like, oh, well, riddle me this. And he would ask them a question. As a matter of fact, Jesus asked 307 questions to people. He was very good at listening to people, and he was slow to speak, and he allowed people to be able to process on their own some of the questions that they were asking of him. But then James adds this little caveat there at the end. He says, and slow to get angry. Slow to get angry. That is not me, and I'd like to blame genetics from like an Asian mom, you know what I mean? Like anyone, we have several people with like Asian backgrounds, like Asian people, like they just tend to be hot-headed. That's what happens when you come from a country that's still at war for 50 years. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just gonna be some like anger in there. And so I'd like to blame it on that fact, but the reality is like I just get angry easily. I have two boys that just test my patience, right? Like they just continue to like just test my patience. And like I have a wife that just doesn't do what I say. You know what I mean? Like, and it's easy to say that because she's not in this room. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I could be bold. You know what I mean? Like she should, if she just listened more and was submissive, then we wouldn't have these problems, right? No, the issue is I get angry easily. And the question for you this morning is, do you get angry easily? And before you just write it off and say, I don't get angry easily. Hey, this is a message for my wife. This is a message for my mother-in-law. This is a message for that whoever. Before you answer that question, just think about this. What is that thing that just like irks you? What's that thing? What is that thing that just gets under your skin? Who is that person? It could be a boss. You're going to see him this week. Just like, you can't stand them. It could be that coworker. They're going to come in this week. They're going to microwave their tuna fish. They're going to eat it right next to you and smack their lips, right? Like, who is that person that just truly gets on your nerves? We have a lot of students in the room. Maybe it's that teacher. You're just like, you just don't want to go to that class. Maybe you're a teacher and you're thinking about that student you're going to have to deal with. And you're like, every day I got to deal with this person. It could be someone on Facebook and it's one of your friends and you're like, oh my gosh. You know, there's like these new buttons now where you can like snooze people. You ever like snooze someone, like you muted them, or like, or if you're on Instagram and you're going to be bold, maybe you unfollow them, right? Like that's a big deal. Have you ever been in one of those Facebook arguments, right? And I think in the last 3 years, there's been so many of those, like people just been arguing. And have you ever changed your mind from a Facebook argument? Like you're just going at it with someone, you're just talking about whatever the situation is. You're just having this Facebook argument. Or maybe you're a lot like me, you're like the Michael Jackson meme with the popcorn, right? You're just like, I'm just here for the comments. Like, don't lie, like we all about that tea. Like, I'll just read comments like, this is so good. Like, I did not realize they thought like that. Like, they're an idiot. And you're just reading, just waiting. You see like the little bubbles someone is typing. You're like, oh, this is gonna be good, right? Whatever it is, have you ever like left one of those arguments? Like, you know what? We were just butting heads and like, I felt like this and they felt like this and I thought I was right and they thought they were right, but you know, they were so compelling, they were so belittling towards me that I finally saw it their way. And I'm glad we had that argument on Facebook, right? I see things differently now, right? No one ever does that, but yet we still think we can change people by engaging in those types of things. Some people, it just seem to just love to be angry. Like there's just some people like, why are you so crabby all the time? Like, dude, you don't have to be like that. Everyone else is wrong. They're the only one that is right. And the question kind of becomes, does your anger draw people to you or does it push them away? Does your anger help you in reaching people or does it further isolate yourself? James, he says it this way again in verse 20. He says, human anger does not produce the righteousness God desires. Righteousness is being made right, or like the holiness. So he's saying human anger does not produce this holiness that God desires. It doesn't help us when it comes to our character. It doesn't help us when it comes to our attitude. It doesn't help us when it comes to our actions. But maybe we feel like when we get angry, we are totally justified because someone was wrong. They did something to us. They wronged us. They hurt us. And now they deserve our wrath. They deserve what is to be said towards them. They deserve the actions. They deserve punishment. And it's easy to want to give someone punishment, but when we're the ones that mess up, we want forgiveness and grace. We're quick to throw the book at someone else and say, hey, I need mercy. I need you to forgive me. So we want to neglect it. And the kind of the thought we have today is this: when it comes to your anger, do you want to make a point or do you want to make a difference? Right? We are like, in marriage, it's all about points, right? Like who's right, who's wrong. We're keeping tabs here. And do you want to make a point or do you want to make a difference? Is your anger bringing you more joy? It's like almost like oxymoron, right? Like, is your anger making you happier? Is anger making your marriage better? Like, I've not taught, like, we have several couples in our church who've been married 40 plus. We even have a couple of couples in our church who've been married over 50 years. And then, you talk to those couples, like, man, how are you doing it? And they have not said to me, every week we get angry with each other, fierce anger towards each other. This hatred towards each other really brought us close through our anger. And now we just know we hate each other, but we do it together, right? People aren't doing that. Your anger is not making your marriage better. Anger is not making your relationship with your kids better. And honestly, that's convicting to me. I don't want my attitude or my temper to be able to flare or to sever relationships. I want them to be better. So I want to make a point at the same time. And you can't do that. You can't let anger control yourself. Nothing wrong with the emotion of anger. But most of us take that emotion and then we take it too far and we take it out on other people. So we want to make a difference. And you need the Holy Spirit to do that. Matter of fact, Pastor Ryan just talked about that last week, like what the Holy Spirit can do. And it says that he produces in us patience. The Holy Spirit isn't producing anger in ourselves. He produces patience. So it's not about winning the argument. It's about winning with people. How do we win with people? Which means we need a new approach, a new attitude. Jesus said it this way in Matthew 22. We read this a couple of weeks ago. It says, one of them, being a teacher, an expert in religious law, tried to trap Jesus with this question: Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses? And Jesus replied, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important: love your neighbor as yourself. We love ourselves. You love yourself. How do I know? Open up your Amazon app and let's look at your recent orders. We love ourselves. We take care of ourselves. We do things for ourselves. And Jesus says that we should love other people in the same way that you show love to yourself. So we battle anger with love. It truly would change the world if we reacted or responded differently to people, if instead of being angry at them, we showed them love, getting them something they don't deserve. So how do you let go of anger? We'll look at two quick things, and we'll be out quick this morning, all right? So how do you let go of anger? The first thought is this: lower your expectations of others. You gotta lower the expectations of others. There are some of you that have such a high bar in life that no one will ever reach your level of humanity. You just look at life through this lens of this is my level, this is my standard, and you gotta reach this standard, and then you're wondering why your marriage is struggling. You have put expectations on your spouse that they can never meet. You're wondering why things are falling apart around you. It's because you have high expectations of others. And I get it, even with our kids, sometimes we push them, and I'm not saying hey, if your kid is failing, maybe that's the best they can do. Maybe you gotta be realistic about that. Or hey, yeah, I'm not saying don't push your kids, but what I'm saying is sometimes we place expectations on them that are so great that they will never be able to make it, and they're constantly spending their life trying to win the approval of their mom or their dad. Listen, and when it comes to sports, I want my kids to have a great time. I want them to have fun because I understand they may never rise to the level of my athleticness. You know what I'm saying? I understand that, I'm just gifted athletically. Listen, they may not get to that level, and I'm cool with that. I peaked as a sophomore. You know what I'm saying? That's just what it is. And I don't expect them to be something that they're not. I don't want to place expectations on them that they don't need to reach. And I think a lot of us just do that in life. We have these high expectations, these high demands, and we think people need to meet them because if they don't, we get to feel justified in our anger. But the deal is, people are going to let you down. People are going to make mistakes. People are going to lie to you. They are going to leave your text on read. They are going to forget. They're not going to show up. People will let you down. It's just part of it. Like as a pastor, like there's going to be times where like you're going to have expectations on me and I'm going to let you down. And I can tell you from my end, it's not going to be on purpose. Some of you, it will be. All right? For some of you, it will be on purpose. I'll let you figure out for who. For the most part, I'm not trying to let you down on purpose. Our leadership, here at the church, we're going to do things or make decisions that are going to let you down. Why? Because we are people. And people are going to hurt you. People are flawed. People are going to mess up. People have mistakes. Our church was perfect until the moment you showed up, right? Like, we are going to be the reason why things aren't going to go well. And so we got to lower our bar of expectation towards other people. Let's just giving people the benefit of the doubt that they're going to mess up, they're going to make mistakes. Listen to what Paul tells a young pastor, Timothy, in 2 Timothy chapter 2. This is the second letter he writes him. And Paul's talking in context here. He's talking about the last days. But I want you to listen to what he says because it sounds very similar to our culture today. It says this in verse 2. For people will only love themselves and their money. They will be boastful and proud, scoffing at God, disobedient to their parents, and ungrateful. They will consider nothing sacred. They will be unloving and unforgiving. They will slander others and have no self-control. They will be cruel and hate what is good. They will betray their friends. They will be reckless. They'll be puffed up with pride, and they will love pleasure rather than God. And in verse 5, it continues on. They says, they will act religious, but they will reject the power that could make them godly. Only Jesus was perfect. That's why he had to come live this life, to show us that there is a bar we will never, ever meet. We needed him. So we need to understand that people are gonna let us down. So when someone lets you down, don't use that as your opportunity to say, see, this is why I give up on God and this is why I give up on the church. You're blaming people or things that have nothing to do with it. People are flawed. They're going to let you down. And if you just lowered your expectations a little bit, hey, you will find that your relationships get a little better. This happened to us recently within some family situations, and there was some tension there, and then something was said that got brought up that like it just felt like an absolute lie, like you're trying to dodge the situation here. But if you just give that person the benefit of the doubt, which we did, say, you know what, maybe that really did happen. Maybe what they're saying is the truth. Then hey, it's so much easier to give grace. It's so much easier to say, okay, you know what? I'm that person sometimes. I'm that person that drops the ball sometimes. So when you just give the person the benefit of the doubt, give your spouse the benefit of the doubt, give your kids the benefit of the doubt, hey, it's gonna help you in your relationships because you just learn to go, you know what? I don't need to have such a high expectation. I can just lower it a little bit. Here's the second thought. This is how you let go of anger. I think this one will be the most important. All right, it's to be thankful for God's grace. Be thankful for God's grace. I want to have a high grace tolerance in my life. I just want to ride the line of like a high grace tolerance. I get to meet with lots of people. As a pastor, I meet with people all week, or whether they go to our church or don't go to our church, talk to other pastors or whatever. And I've had some people share some really dark moments with me, things that like, if you were to hear about them, you go, man, like you would think differently about that person. And it's in those moments, I never try to judge that person because I don't want to think that I'm so good that won't be me one day. Like, I don't want to think that, that'll never happen to me. I will never do, because pride puffs up. And before you know it, you're going to be that person that does the very thing you said you would never do. And so in those moments, I want that person to understand that, hey, I love you, I'm accepting you, like this doesn't change anything. And in your darkest moments, God still loves you as much as he does when you're doing right. He doesn't love you less, and when you start to live right, he doesn't love you more. He loves you as much as he possibly can right now. And if you just are thankful for God's grace in your life, then you realize, man, this person needs to feel that love because I'm the person who really deserves to be punished. I'm the person who doesn't have it all together. And, you know, if I had a reality TV show and the cameras followed my life around all day, I think you would probably watch and go, that guy leads our church. That guy's a pastor. Because as Paul writes, and I relate to it, he says that he's the chief of sinners. He says, you know, the thing that I want to do, that's the thing I don't end up doing. The thing that I don't want to do, that's the thing that I do. He says, I'm a wretched man. And sometimes there are days that I just feel like, you know what, like God, I can't do this. But then I realize that it's never been about myself anyways. And any single person in this room is the exact same way. How often does God have to keep showing grace in your life? It's just like, man, I just keep letting this person get away with this. Oh, they said they weren't going to do it, and they just did it again. They said they weren't going to that website. They just did it again. They were supposed to block that person, and they didn't. They were supposed to not say that, and they did. And God just go, you know what? You know what would make everything so much better in that? Like, I'm just going to take them out. Bam. A funeral is what they need in their life. That person needs to come home, right? Like how many, we would all be out, we would all be gone. But yet God continues to just constantly show us grace over and over again. When you read the New Testament, Jesus has so much patience and he's so much grace. Like I think through stories where there's the story where the woman was caught in the act of adultery, and we won't get on this, but like this woman was obviously set up, all right? There were people there. They caught her and they throw her in front of Jesus. To like my second question was, where's the dude? Right? Where's the guy? So she was set up. And here's a woman in like the most intimate thing a person can do with another person, gets caught and thrown before Jesus. This woman was caught in the act of adultery. And Jesus just says, hey, whoever doesn't have sin in their life, let them cast the first stone. Every single person has to leave because every single person is messed up. Jesus meets the woman at the well, and it's like, here's the woman, it's like, this lady right here, like, she's been married 5 times, and she's just now living with this guy. And Jesus calls her out on it, and then he doesn't shame her, he just accepts her and loves her. The disciples, when you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, these guys were idiots. At some point, if we were Jesus, we'd be like, you know, we need a new team. You know, we need like a new team of people. Like this squad that is following me, these guys don't get it. They constantly are messing up. They constantly don't get like, I was literally walking on water. Why are they freaking out about the boat? I literally raised someone from the dead. Why are they worried about their life? I literally fed 20,000 people. Why are they worried about where our next meal is coming from? They didn't get it. But yet, Jesus constantly shows his grace to us. Grace simply just means unmerited favor, getting something we don't deserve. Paul writes it this way to the church in Ephesus. He says, God saved you by his grace when you believed, the moment you put your faith and trust in Christ. You can't take credit for this. It's a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward of the good things we have done. In other words, you can never do enough to earn God's favor. He gives it to you. Why? So that none of us can boast about it. In our lowest and in our darkest moments, that's the time when God showers his grace on you. And that should humble you. Like if you're a true follower of Jesus this morning, you realize that you're the person that wants to be able to take it out on someone else when it should be taken out on you, and God withholds his wrath, and he gives you his grace. And when you understand that you deserve nothing, but he gives you everything, that will humble you, and you become thankful for that. It shows us we are guilty ourselves. And so when we feel anger and we feel justified, when someone wrongs us, when they at us online, we want to give them our wrath, but God gives us his grace. And God never gives us his wrath. And that will change the way that you view relationships, lowering the expectations of other people and being thankful for the grace that God has given in our lives. Understanding that we could never be made right apart from God. We need him, which is why he goes on our behalf. It's not about making a point, it's about making a difference. It's not about being right, it's about being loving, and it's sharing how God has changed your life. Think about it. If you just lowered your expectations of others, if you just started being grateful for the grace God has shown in your life, those very people that used to irk you in your life right now, those relationships will change because they will look at you and go, okay, why are you acting this way? What's different about you? Because they will see that there is a difference in your life. The way we let go of anger is to lower our expectations and to be thankful for the grace of God. And let's pray.